So this woman said that her and her boyfriend were on a road trip and they didn't have a specific destination. So she decided, okay, since we don't have a specific destination and we're passing by this bed and breakfast, maybe we should just stay here. We've been sleeping in the car for the past few days. Let's sleep in an actual bed. So the first thing that she noticed when they get to the small parking lot of the bed and breakfast is that there's only one car. They get inside the bed and breakfast, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to a bed and breakfast, but most of the time they have people sign in just so they can keep track of the people who have stayed there. Fast forward, she said first impression of the person who owned the bed and breakfast was really creepy. She wouldn't stop smiling. She said this woman just, was super pretty, but wouldn't stop smiling at them, and she thought that was weird. Fast forward again, they get shown upstairs, they get ready for bed and go to sleep immediately. She gets to sleep, but she said that she woke up to someone singing in her ear. So, of course, she sits up in the bed, scans the room. She doesn't see anyone. Her boyfriend is asleep, and she lays back down. She couldn't get to sleep again because she kept hearing humming. And this time she sat up in the bed, and across from the bed, she saw a woman sitting in front of the vanity mirror. She said every single time she blinked, this woman was in a different area of the room. That right there would have made me just go ahead and leave my luggage too. Yeah. She said as soon as she blinked, the woman got up from the vanity and was standing next to her luggage. Then she blinked again, and the woman was wearing some of her clothes. So not only is she scary, she a thief too. I don't like it. She tries to wake her boyfriend up, but he is just out like a light. He wouldn't budge. And so she decides she's going to get up and try to walk towards the woman. She says every single step she took, the woman's neck got longer. While this woman's neck is getting longer, she's still brushing her hair in front of the vanity. The woman says she got so close she could literally reach out and touch her. I just want to know why you wanted to do that anyway. Fast forward, she tried to reach out and touch the woman, and the woman let out this really high-pitched scream. And she said that's all she remembers, and then she woke up the next morning on the floor. It's morning time now, and it's time for breakfast. She tells her boyfriend about what happened. Her boyfriend was like, I think it was just a nightmare because, this is the first time we've slept in a bed in like 4 days. The owner is the one that's cooking them breakfast. So the owner hears them talking about it, and she comes over and she says she gives me a hard time too. I'm surprised that she allows you guys to stay through the night. What do you mean allowed? She said that she can never get anyone to stay through the night. She hasn't gotten anyone to stay through the night in years. The boyfriend convinces her to stay one more night because he said he wanted to rest a little more in a bed. She says she woke up in the middle of the night to someone burning her on her forearm. She looks up, and it's the woman that she saw sitting in front of the vanity. Now, she says this woman is on top of her, and the woman has her hand placed over her mouth. She said as soon as the woman removed her hand from her mouth, her lips were it's almost like they were glued shut. The woman said she was absolutely terrified, and she tried her hardest to reach out and touch her boyfriend, but nothing worked. Nothing woke him up. She looks up at the woman and she said that her neck is getting longer again and her skin is changing this time. Then she said she looked in her mouth and she noticed that she has super razor sharp shark teeth. She wakes her boyfriend up finally and she tells him, I want to leave right this second. I don't want to wait. So he jumps up. They start putting things in the car. And while they're packing up the car, guess who is standing right there watching them? You guessed it. The long neck demon. That is insane. She said that there's a part 2. She's going to give more information on what happened when she got home. Long neck demon, part 2. So she said after that crazy stuff that happened at the B&B, the bed and breakfast, her and her boyfriend left the B&B and they continued their road trip. Took them about 4 more days to get home after they continued their road trip. Her and her boyfriend don't live together, so she said when she got home, she's alone. The first thing she noticed was it was a really stinky smell in her house, and she didn't know where it was coming from, but then she thought, hey, my basement flooded before, maybe it flooded again while we were gone. She goes down the basement, and there's nothing. She said there's still the smell, but her basement isn't flooded. She decided she'll figure out where that smell was coming from, in the morning. She really wasn't too concerned about it. She leaves the basement, goes into the kitchen, grabs her a glass out of the cabinet, puts it on the counter, and she said when she walked to the refrigerator to grab the water pitcher, her glass was gone. So naturally, she feels like she's crazy because she knows for a fact that she put that glass on the counter. She starts looking around, she can't find it, and she says something told her to look up. When she looked up, she couldn't believe her eyes. Her glass was floating in the air. Now, she tried to reach for the glass. Because she was just so shocked, she couldn't believe it was just up there floating. When she tried to reach for it, she said that she saw the hands of the woman from the bed and breakfast wrapped around the glass. A few seconds later, the glass dropped, shattered. After this happened, she was like, yeah, I got to get my boyfriend over here. She calls him and he comes over right away. She thought having him there would make her feel safe. So the boyfriend gets there. They decide to have a little movie night. They're in the living room. They start this movie, but as soon as they started the movie, she said it sounded like something heavy dropped upstairs. Her boyfriend went upstairs to check things out while she stayed in the living room. She sees her boyfriend walking back down the stairs, so she decided to press play on the movie. Her man sits down, he wraps his arms around her, she leans into him, and they're watching the movie. And she said within a few seconds, she smelled that terrible stench again, and it was coming from her boyfriend. She leaned up to let him know that he smelled terrible. But as soon as she leaned up, she looked at his face, and it was the bed and breakfast woman. She screamed so loud, her boyfriend came running from upstairs. And she was asking him, like, where were you at? And he's like, I was in the bathroom. She has since then sold her home, hoping that moving from out of her home will get this thing to stop bothering her. But she said that she moved in with her boyfriend, and she's been there for 5 months now. She says small things still happen, but nothing big, nothing crazy like at her house. She believes that the thing is attached to her now, and she thinks that if, the longer she stays with her boyfriend, she thinks that more things are going to start happening. Do you know how scared I would be if I see a glass floating in the air and long bony fingers wrapped around the glass and you tried to reach out and touch it? What?
And this is why I always make sure my doors are locked. So there's this girl. She said 3 years ago, she was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with her then boyfriend. It was a half basement unit, so the bottom of all of their windows were like level with the ground. Also, because it was an older apartment, some of the windows didn't lock. Immediately no. No. So one day her boyfriend comes in from work and she's laying on the couch. He runs up to the window next to her and like is looking out of it frantically. Then he goes to every other window in the house and looks out of them. Then he goes outside and is looking at all of the windows. So when he comes back in, she's like, fuck was that? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I think I just walked up on a dude looking at you through the window. He took off as I walked up. What do you mean think? Did you see a motherfucker there looking at a window? Yes or no? So naturally, she was unsettled. But she said after discussing it with her boyfriend and considering the time of day it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that there were probably a lot of people out and about around the complex at this time. So they just came to the conclusion that a neighbor or somebody passing by just happened to glance in. I ain't never just walked past my neighbor's house and just like been noticeably looking in the windows. I feel like it's one thing if you're just like walking by and you kind of look over and they have their blinds open and you just so happen to see in there, but I ain't never been like, I wonder if they have porridge. Like, what are we talking about? But she said that was that, and they forgot about it. Y'all be forgetting about shit too easy for me. So she says for the next couple of months, a bunch of odd things start happening around the apartment. Like she said she would be home and somebody would knock on the door, but when she goes to open it, there would be nobody there. Then she said she started to notice things in the apartment that she didn't recognize, or like articles of their clothing and stuff would be missing, but she didn't think too deep into it. Why are we not thinking too deep into that? Like, stuff missing from your place? Okay, maybe you rationalize it as I misplaced it, I left it somewhere. Noticing stuff in your apartment that you don't recognize? Woo. If I know me and my boyfriend don't smoke, I'm gonna be a little surprised when I see a pack of Marlboros extra long laying on the kitchen counter. A little bit. So one night, she and her boyfriend are arguing. She said it's around 1 or 2 in the morning and they are being a little loud. They're in the kitchen and they're standing face to face. His back is turned to an open window with the blinds pulled halfway up, and so she's facing that window. In the middle of that argument, she glances behind him at the window because she thought she saw a reflection of her face, but then it dawned on her, the window's open. Not seeing a reflection of my face, I'm seeing someone else's face. Y'all, there's a man at the window with his face pressed almost against the window screen, watching them. So she said because they were arguing and it was late, she thought it might have just been a concerned neighbor that heard the commotion and stopped by to like talk to them or like make sure everything was okay. So she speaks to him, and she says she is a little aggressive because she feels like the neighbor is intruding on their privacy. So she's like, yo, hello, can I help you? And he just stares at her, doesn't blink, doesn't move, doesn't change facial expressions, just stares at her. In this moment, she realizes the windows are level with the ground. So in order for his face to be pressed up against his screen, he has to be lying down and like contorted in a way where he can press his face against the window. Okay, neighbor passing by to check in to see if everything's okay. All right, I can rationalize that. You're laying on the ground to look at my window? Call the FBI. She said she buried her face into her boyfriend's chest and closes her eyes. What's that gonna do? He's still there. That's not you. You think closing eyes gonna make him disappear? He didn't even believe her at first. It wasn't until like she did bury her face in his chest that he was like, y'all was like, is it really somebody out there? If we're having a conversation and you keep looking past me, I'm immediately, because what are you looking at? What's back there? I'm right here. What are you looking at? So she tells him like, yeah, there's somebody at the window. But by the time he turns around, the guy's gone. So she ends up filing a police report with his description. Her brother also came and like loaded up her apartment with weapons so that way she could protect herself if anything happened, or at the bare minimum, at least let this person know that she was armed. She said her boyfriend and her brother were like on super high alert, and it was a few times where her brother came over and saw this sketchy dude around the complex, and even one time saw him at her window. She said her brother tried to follow him discreetly, but as soon as he stepped in his direction, the guy took off running. So one night, her boyfriend's at work, so she's sitting home alone on the couch and she's on her phone. Because she's on her phone, she said it's silent in the house and she hears a door creak open. She said it's a pretty small apartment, so all she had to do was lean forward on the couch to see the bedroom and the bathroom, because initially she thought it was her cats coming out of her room or something. But when she leaned over to see, it was the small storage closet with the water heater in it. That's the door that was opening. She looks to the right, sees both of her cats sleeping on the couch. She looks back to the door. It's still creaking open. It opens enough for her to see a set of fingers wrapped around the door, easing it gently to open it as quietly as possible. The fingers on the door would have sent me to the damn moon. Immediately. I would think there was a demon in my house. I'd be watching too many scary movies. So Shorty's like, fuck that. She jumps up and runs out the front door barefoot, moving with urgency. I love to see it. She runs down the street to her boyfriend's job. She calls the cops. They come, but obviously by the time they get there, the guy is gone. But that night, she said they packed their shit and they went and stayed with her parents. Amen to that. Some of these motherfuckers like to stick around and see what happens. No, not sticking around here. She said they stayed with her parents for 6 months and then moved 1,000 miles away from that town. And she said that was the end of it. Now she's living in this new place, again, 1,000 miles away from where everything had happened. She hears a knock on her front door. She said she was expecting a package, so she just assumed it was a delivery driver, so she didn't answer it. She was like, she would just get the package later. And then they knock again. She doesn't answer. And then they knock a third time. And she said the third time, it started to make her a little uneasy. So she waits like 20 minutes, and then she goes to the front door, opens it, and there's no package, no nothing. Just somebody was knocking at the door. Now she said even though this made her a little uneasy, she doesn't automatically think about the stressful situation from before, because she's like, we done moved so far away, like I'm not even thinking about that. I'm always gonna be thinking about that for the rest of my life. Folks wouldn't even be able to breathe too close to me. So one day she goes out to get groceries. She says she has a little patio and she goes out there like in the mornings or like to check on the plants, and she has been known to leave it unlocked during the daytime. Y'all know how I feel about locking them doors. Y'all gonna lock them doors. Lock them. All of them. All the time. But she had never thought it was a big deal until she came home from getting those groceries and the deadbolt to her apartment was locked. The deadbolt that can only be locked from the inside. So she calls her sister. She calls her boyfriend, not the same boyfriend. She done got a new boyfriend. Oh, that's right, sister. She got a new man. Who this? And she waits for them to get there before she goes inside. Smart girl. She said they go in through the sliding glass door. Initially, she thought she had got robbed, but nothing was out of place. Nothing of value was taken. Nothing was touched. Nothing was stolen. She said somebody was just inside of her apartment for the sake of being inside of her apartment. She tells her new boyfriend about her past stalker, and she's like, I'm hoping that's not what this is, but Maybe it is. And he takes it really serious. They file a police report, they check for recording devices and cameras, and then they install their own cameras. She says she hopes it's a coincidence because she just can't believe that this man will follow her across state lines. And I hope he didn't. But folks are crazy. Y'all stay safe out there.
So it's one thing when you see something scary, but it's a whole other when that scary thing talks to you. And with that being said, let's jump right into tonight's story. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary story that happened in Appalachia. Because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Abby. I had just finished watching your latest Tea After Midnight episode and your story of you and Eva encountering something that is insanely scary. As you said, the stories you get sent don't have to be about the Appalachian Mountains, but mine does take place in them. I'm Abby, but I'm not going to expose my friend's name in this story for their personal privacy, but I'd love if you shared this story. So I would like to start my story by sharing the setting. This story happened in 2023 and takes place in the Appalachian Mountains. One night I'm laying in bed, staying up late, binge watching a show. It's about 2 a.m. and my dog is sound asleep at the end of my bed. My lights are off and I'm on my phone watching the show when I hear someone whisper my name, Abby, with a faint small scratch following off the outside of my door onto the hallway walls. As dumb as I can be, I respond going, Mom, or Bella, my sister, but that isn't her real name. I open my door to see everyone is asleep and no one is in the hallway. I get intense chills but later brush it off. I decided to go to sleep, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. And mind you, my bed is beside the only window in my room, which is very large, and I didn't have good curtains at the time. Then my dog, who was laying so still at the edge of my full-size bed and sleeping quietly, jumps up faster than the speed of light. For a little foreshadowing of my dog's future actions, this dog is a rescue and is very gentle. And if he saw a ladybug, he would just stare, careless to eat it like others. Now when my dog is standing up, he is in a very still position, just standing, but he is growling directly at my window. I don't want to look at my window at all, so I'm about to pet my dog to see if he's okay, when he sits up in perfect posture and just starts panting. He slowly turns his head directly at me, something straight out of a horror movie. I can tell he is very aggressive in the moment, which is new to me, so I slowly start to back up. When he jumps at me, he grabs my arm and he bites really hard. I'm screaming for him to stop, but he is pulling and eventually breaks the skin. I break free and run to my door, slamming it on him as he claws aggressively at my door. I run to my dad's room holding my arm. I wake my dad up and show him my arm, and he runs downstairs fast. He goes outside to look at my window and sees no one. Then he walks to my room to open my door. He sees my bed made and my dog sleeping peacefully at the edge of my bed. No scratch marks on my door, and I know I didn't dream this because the bite marks remained bleeding on my arm. So I wrap up my arm and sleep on the couch instead. I still don't know what possessed or happened to my dog. But I had told one of my friends this story, and she asked to see a picture of my dog before the incident and after. She's someone who works with seeing animals' signs of aggression and said something has changed in him, but it wasn't good. It's been 3 years, and he's not done anything like that again, but that day will stick with me forever. I'm so sorry that the story was so long, but I have another with the same settings in the beginning. This starts in 2023 in the Appalachian Mountains when I'm in my basement with one of my friends. My basement is very big and we had a gym, which me and my friend were in with lots of storage and random rooms around us. My friend and I were playing around and got thirsty, so we went to the random fridge to get Gatorade. That's when my friend drops her drink and she looks like she had just seen a ghost. I look back and see nothing there where she was looking. She grabs my hand and we run upstairs, and she starts sobbing and saying there was a tall man, faceless, singing a song to her with the words, "Come on now, the world will end, you will survive, we have no time." At first I thought she was making this up, so I didn't really care or anything, which was kind of rude of me, but she didn't come back for a while. Then another friend who I never told this story to, and she didn't know my friend, we both never mentioned what happened to anyone. We were both in my basement, and she says she's seen a man behind the firewood pile out of the window singing a song, and I said, "What song?" She then copied the exact words as the first friend did. "Come on now, the world will end. You will survive. We have no time." Again, I thought they somehow knew each other, even though one of my friends was from school and the other was from camp. I was really skeptical it might have been some sick joke. But this happened with 8 different people who I've never mentioned the story to. The same man, different place in or around my basement, and same song. This man was said to be tall and bone-like. He has no face, but only a hat and a suit. I'm genuinely terrified about this happening after about 10 more times being in the basement with different people and the same stuff continuing to happen. Until 2 years later, I'm walking in the fields with one of my friends who has seen this man. There's a cabin in these fields which I'm aware of, and the whole field is covered in snow. So I'm walking around the cabin when I see footprints of classy boots going into the cabin, which is trashed and abandoned. Well, my friend starts running without saying anything, and I'm like, oh shoot, so I start running after her, and she eventually stops and I sit down and go, what? She then said, he was right behind you, but he crawled into the creek when you ran. And let me tell you, right then and there, I burst out crying, bawling my eyes out, because what? So then I stand up and looking back, I see footprints and handprints leading to the creek. So we ran back to my house and made hot chocolate and didn't want to talk about it. And I had still never seen this man. About a year or 2 later, comes to now, today. I'm sitting on the porch with my dad talking about my upcoming birthday, and it's very late and dark outside. That's when my dad stands up, freaking out, saying he heard someone running in the woods right beside us, saying, "Come on now, the world will end. You will survive. We have no time," in a breathless voice. The very first time I've seen the man. I truly don't know what to do or who he is or if he's real, but I'm horrified. That's my story for you, and I'd love to hear your response to this if you're comfortable. But thank you for letting me share, and I wish I could be making these up, but I'm horrified and clueless of what to do right now. Abby, that is absolutely terrifying. But I want to jump back to the beginning where you're talking about your dog being on the bed and is a very gentle dog normally, but you're laying there and you hear something whisper your name, then you hear the scratching from your door following onto the wall in the hallway. That is so scary. But your dog being normally gentle, they're sitting up in an upright position, looking at the window, growling. But then they look at you and they attack you. They jump at you and attack you when this dog is normally very gentle. That is so strange to me. So I don't know why that happened. Very scary. And then your dad to come down there and check outside and there's nothing there. But when you come back to the room, your bed's made up. The dog's sleeping peacefully like nothing ever happened. But your arm is still bleeding. But now let's address the man that not only you, but your other friends on different occasions, different people, saw the exact same thing and heard the same song that he sang. I don't know what these lyrics are. Come on now, the world will end. You will survive. We have no time. If anybody in the comments knows what this means, what it's talking about, please enlighten all of us because I'm at a loss. To me, I truthfully don't know what this is, what this being or entity could be. But then also you're outside in the field and it's snowy so you can kind of see the footprints and everything. Your friend starts running, so you start running. And then when you find out what she saw, you literally see the footprints and the handprints leading down to the creek. That is terrifying. I've got chills right now. So if any of you watching have had a similar experience to Abby, please let us know in the comments. I truly don't know what this is, so if you guys have any idea, please let us know. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them, and they do not have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. This happened a few years ago, and now, to this day, my husband refuses to question my intuition ever again. My husband is one of the most outgoing people you'll ever meet. He'll strike up a conversation with anyone, and he genuinely believes the best in people. I, however, am the opposite. I take note of things. Notice things like expressions, the way people look at you for just a second too long, and the way a smile doesn't reach someone's eyes. My gut has saved us more than once, but this story is the one that finally convinced my husband to trust it. Before becoming a police officer, my husband worked in the medical unit of our county jail. While he worked there, he became friends with an older nurse practitioner. We'll call her Jill. She was in her 70s, but looked decades younger. She was energetic, intelligent, and unbelievably kind. Too kind, almost. When she left her job, she gave my husband a gift card and a handwritten note thanking him for his friendship, and she invited our family to breakfast so that our families could get to know each other. It sounded harmless at the time. I had a 1-year-old son and was pregnant with our second baby, so we met them at the Cracker Barrel. The moment I saw Jill, I knew something wasn't right. I felt it. I couldn't explain it, but I felt it. She smiled constantly, complimented everything, laughed a little too hard at every joke, and treated us like we'd known each other for years. Her husband Bill, on the other hand, seemed completely different, quiet and reserved. It felt like he was confused about why he was even there. I remember looking at him and thinking he seemed normal, but looking at Jill... Still, though, I ignored it. I pushed the feeling aside. Over the next several months, we met for dinners, community events, and little outings around the town. And then one day, Jill invited us to her home. Immediately, I wanted to say no. Something inside me screamed not to go, but my husband adored these people. He'd grown up without a mother, so I think part of him loved the attention she gave him. So we went. Their house was enormous. Far too large for 2 elderly people with no children. Everything inside was spotless. Perfect. Expensive antiques lined every room. China cabinets filled to full capacity, silver collections polished to perfection, old paintings, grandfather clocks, trinkets. It definitely didn't scream warm and inviting. Jill eventually told us that she had never been able to have children because of something traumatic that happened earlier in her life. And me being pregnant at the time, my heart broke for her. It made a little sense to me why she seemed so drawn to our family then. Maybe she simply wanted to experience something that she never got to have. Months passed, and my husband was accepted into the police academy, and money became extremely tight. We were surviving paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes our bank account was negative before payday. Jill and Bill offered us money. We refused. Then they started helping in other ways. Extra groceries, paper towels, cleaning supplies, boxes of diapers, baby clothes. Every week it seemed like they'd accidentally bought too much of something and wanted us to have it. I appreciated it, but every gift made me feel more indebted to them. As my husband became busier with training, Jill started inviting just me and my son over during the day. I went because I felt obligated, but oddly enough, I became close with Bill. We'd drink coffee together while my son played. He reminded me of the grandfather I'd never had. All the while, Jill adored my son. She carried him everywhere, bought toys specifically to keep at her house, sang songs to him, spoiled him with gifts. She loved him. And to be honest, it really seemed like he loved her too. But no matter how comfortable I became, that strange feeling never disappeared. Then I went into labor with my second son, and ironically, it happened while Jill and I were shopping at Target. She drove me home, grabbed my hospital bags, and rushed me to the hospital. My husband was stuck at the police academy. My sister-in-law was coming to pick up my oldest son, so for about 30 minutes, Jill was alone with him. Those were the longest 30 minutes of my life. My sister-in-law couldn't find them anywhere. I remember texting frantically through contractions, convinced she'd driven away with my child. Eventually, she spotted Jill driving around the hospital campus and flagged her down. My son was perfectly fine, nothing had happened, but I couldn't shake the panic. Months later, after my baby was born, I started spending more time upstairs in their house while breastfeeding. She'd set up a quiet little nursing area for me. At first, I'd just sit there scrolling my phone, but eventually curiosity got the better of me. I started wandering. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs. I found 2 of them fully decorated as children's bedrooms. Tiny beds, toy boxes, stuffed animals, desks, old dolls. Everything looked untouched, almost frozen in time. The dolls were what bothered me the most. Their faces didn't look porcelain. They looked almost real. Their skin felt soft and rubbery, silicone. Their cloudy eyes seemed to follow me around the room, and I noticed something even more weird, if that was even possible. One closet had a lock on the outside. I was examining it as Jill appeared silently in the doorway. She had startled me so badly I almost screamed. For a moment, she simply stood there and stared at me. Then she smiled. I found myself apologizing for wandering, and she explained that she'd inherited her siblings' childhood belongings, and that's why everything was set up. I nodded. It made sense, I guess. But she kept glancing toward that locked closet, almost like she was waiting to see if I'd ask about it, but I never did. I just grabbed my baby and went downstairs. Over the next few months, I occasionally heard noises upstairs while nursing. Soft bumps, scratching sounds, things shifting inside the room where the locked closet was. I never investigated, though. Then came the day that changed everything. My youngest was about 6 months old. My husband and Bill were outside grilling. Jill was crawling around the floor chasing my toddler while he laughed hysterically. I sat nearby, rocking the baby. It was, seemingly, just another normal day at their house. Until she turned toward us. Still on her hands and knees, she opened her mouth wide and made this low, croaking sound. Then, in a voice that didn't sound like hers at all, she smiled and said, "Oh, you're so cute, I could eat you up." Yes, I could. You and your baby brother, I could eat you both up. The room went completely silent, and every hair on my body stood up. My toddler stopped laughing instantly and ran into my arms. One of the greyhounds they owned quietly whimpered and walked out of the room. And their African grey parrot suddenly started screaming, "Oh no, oh no, oh no," over and over. The bird was slapping so violently in its cage that it was shaking. Jill never broke eye contact. Her smile stretched impossibly wide, her breathing became slow and heavy, and I swear her eyes looked completely black. Then she blinked, looked away, and casually laughed. Phew, I'm not used to playing with little boys. She stood up, walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened, and I texted my husband one sentence: "We're leaving right now." On our drive home, I cried and told him everything. The dolls, the children's bedroom, the locked closet, the noises, the way she looked at our children, the animals' reactions, everything, every detail I finally told him. And I also told him that if he didn't take me seriously, I was done. He looked at my face, and for the first time since meeting Jill, he believed me. We went back only once to retrieve a few belongings we'd left behind. And while standing in the driveway saying goodbye, a little girl from across the street rode over on her bike to show Jill. Before she could even finish talking, her father sprinted across the street, grabbed her so fast it startled everyone, and stared directly at my husband. The look on his face, almost asking, "Why are your children here?" My husband looked at me and I could see it. He knew he should have listened to me from the beginning. We slowly stopped answering Jill's calls. She never pushed. She simply just disappeared from our lives. About a year later, we happened to be driving through that side of town. Curious, we decided to pass by their house. And it was gone. Burned to the ground, apparently. Only the mailbox remained standing.
I broke an Appalachian rule I was told as a kid. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary story. If you grow up around here, you learn certain rules. Don't whistle at night, don't answer something that calls your name from the woods, and if you hear someone you love outside your window after dark, don't look. My grandmother used to say that last one like it wasn't superstition, like it was a seatbelt. You look, she'd say, and it knows you can see it. I always thought she meant coyotes or bears. I don't anymore. It was 1:47 a.m. when I heard my mom's voice outside my bedroom window. Soft, calm. "Hey, baby." My stomach dropped immediately. My mom lives 40 minutes away. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. Then it came again. Closer to the glass this time. "Open the window." Same voice, same tone. But something about it felt flattened, like someone doing an impression. I stayed still, didn't answer. That's another rule. Then it said something only she would know, a nickname she hasn't used since I was 10. "Come on, just look at me." I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, auditory hallucination, anything but what my grandmother meant. The voice shifted slightly. Why won't you look at me? Still soft, still patient. That made it worse. Then it said, you always used to look for monsters under your bed. There aren't any under there. Something scraped lightly against the siding, right beneath my window, and I broke the rule. I looked. She was standing at the edge of the yard, just past the tree line, wearing my mom's face, but wrong. Too tall, shoulders too narrow, arms hanging just a little too long. Her head tilted slightly, like it wasn't used to sitting on that neck. The face was almost perfect. Almost. The smile stretched too far back. Her eyes weren't focused on me. They were fixed on the reflection in the glass, watching herself, adjusting. When our eyes finally met, her expression changed instantly. Not confused, not angry, delighted. Her mouth opened wider than it should have. She started laughing. High, sharp, wrong, and said, I got you, in a shrill voice. Then she stepped backward, not turning, not blinking, just sliding into the trees, still smiling. I don't remember grabbing my phone. I just remember calling my mom. She picked up on the second ring. Hello? She sounded half asleep. Normal. Mom? My voice was shaking. I think I just had a nightmare. Silence. Not the kind where someone's thinking, the kind where someone is listening. Mom? A soft breath cracked through the speaker. Then, very quietly, I'm inside. The whisper wasn't tired, it wasn't confused, it sounded close, right next to me, and then it laughed. Not loud, not sharp, a thin, careful laugh, like it was trying not to wake someone up. The call ended. The house was completely silent, no footsteps or doors opening, no breathing, nothing. That's what scares me the most. Because my grandmother didn't just say, don't look. She said, looking is the same as opening the door. And I looked.
Got an email from a girl who said that when she was younger, she went to school and came home and her mom had like rearranged her room and she put two mirrors facing each other. And what transpired because of this after this is absolutely horrifying. Now, to give you a little bit of backstory, when Zara was 12 years old, she was in love with anything horror, paranormal, and she'd also see things. And her parents knew this about her. Her entire family did. Zara said that her grandmother also had a very interesting gift. Anytime something bad was about to happen, her grandmother would get this gut feeling, and then she would get this smell like that she didn't explain what it was, but her grandmother would smell things before something bad was about to happen. She did say that before this experience that I'm about to tell you about, nothing harmful had ever happened to her. She had experienced things that were kind of scary, pretty terrifying, but nothing harmful until this incident. Now, she did say that there was one incident where she was sleeping in her room at her grandparents' house and she had these puppets that were above her grandmother's door. And one night she's sleeping in bed and she wakes up in the middle of the night and she looks up at where the puppets are and the puppets are like dancing and moving around. And that was the scariest thing that ever happened to her before this incident. Now, fast forward to the incident. It's important to note that her room was set up with her bed next to her window. And her closet, which had a mirror facing the window, which is also important to know. So one day, Zara comes home from school and she walks into her room and she notices that her mom had cleaned her room and she had moved a few things around. But the first thing that she notices is that her mom had put a mirror facing the closet. And remember, there was a mirror already in the closet. So immediately when she sees this, she moves the mirror because she's like, okay, I know that this is not good. This can open up a portal. I want nothing to do with this. So she moves the mirror. She's like, okay, I'm good. Nothing's going to happen. It was only up for a couple of hours. It'll be fine. She absolutely could not have been more wrong. 2 weeks later, Zara is in her room and she's just laying in her bed when she sees something out of the corner of her eye. She looks over and there's something in the mirror in her closet. There was this woman with black hair, pale skin, and hollowed out eyes. She said that there was something black like mascara running down her face and that she had this white cut up shirt on and she was literally looking at her like this. She showed me a picture of what this thing looked like. I can't show it to you guys because I'm pretty sure I'll get in trouble for that. But if you guys have ever seen The Grudge, it looks exactly like the woman from The Grudge. So horrifying. She said the thing that scared her the most about this was not even the way that it looked. It was the aura that she was giving off. It was like a mixture of sadness and anger. So she tells her mom about this because she's obviously terrified. And her mom just simply tells her, it's not doing anything to you. Just ignore it. It's just trying to scare you. Well, that night she goes to bed and she's laying in bed and she's obviously freaked out when she notices something on the mirror. These handprints start to form on her bedroom mirror. And she keeps on looking and this woman starts coming out of the mirror. And the thing was, is she was coming closer and closer to her, but she wasn't coming closer and closer to her with her entire body. She was coming closer and closer to her with her head only. Her neck was extending and she had that screaming look on her face. It almost looked like she was screaming at Zara, but just no sound was coming out. Now, Zara said that at this point, she just started to close her eyes because she was so so scared, but she could literally feel this thing getting closer to her. So she ends up opening her eyes again because she just can't help it. And she notices that this thing is crawling out of the mirror now. She said that her arms and her legs were so thin and tiny, and her neck was so long that it almost looked like her arms and legs wouldn't be able to hold up her body. It didn't seem natural. Zara said that this went on for 2 weeks with this woman just getting closer and closer to her. At this point, she is now crawling closer to her, and she's closing her eyes each time this is happening. But the thing is that it got to a point where she eventually was able to feel this woman's breath on her forehead. Or in some cases, Zara would be turned around, like facing the other way, and she could feel her like breath on her neck. At this point, Zara is not sleeping because she is so terrified that this woman is actually going to get close enough to her where she's going to like climb on top of her or do something. So she's not sleeping whatsoever. Then things escalated to where whatever this thing was making things fly off of Zara's shelves. She said that perfume bottles would straight up fly off the shelf and like smash against her wall. Here's a picture of what happened. Like, that's a perfume stain right there apparently. And she said that shoes would fly off the shelves and also smash into the wall, and that her mom was so sick of this happening that the reason why there is like blue sticky stuff around the windowsill right there is because her mom put that there because so many fragile things were breaking and smashing against the wall, and that is still there to this day. Well, after about week 3 of this happening, she has had enough and she won't go into the room anymore. She actually starts sleeping with her mother. The only time she goes into that room is during the day or when the lights are on, and it's like to go get her clothes to change for school. Eventually her mom kind of gets sick of this. Her mom is like, okay, something is going on here. This is not good. Whatever this is now getting, it's throwing stuff against the wall. So she actually calls a specialist. And as soon as she tells this specialist what is happening, the specialist is like, I'm coming over right now. This is not good. So this specialist comes, right? And he actually ends up getting rid of this spirit. She doesn't see this spirit anymore. So they think everything's fine in the house. A couple weeks passed, about 7 weeks, she said, passed. Everything was good until one night it wasn't. And in my opinion, something more terrifying happened. One night, Zara goes to bed. She wakes up in the middle of the night. She's not really sure what woke her up. She looks over because she sees something standing by her window. And what she sees was horrifying. There's this woman, probably about 8 feet tall. She said that this woman was taller than her ceiling. The woman was wearing white. She had super thin legs and super thin arms, and her head was cocked at a 90-degree angle, and her face, her cheeks were up against the ceiling because that's how tall she was. Now, she wasn't even looking at Zara. She was just standing there, staring out the window with her head cocked like this. Zara actually said that this happened for a couple more weeks where she would wake up in the middle of the night and she would see this thing, and that her grandmother would get that smell because she would ask her grandmother, like, do you smell anything before this stuff is happening? This stuff is happening to me. You have to be smelling things because these things are not good. And her grandmother would validate her by telling her that she was in fact smelling things. Zara said that these 2 experiences are the scariest things that have ever happened to her in her entire life, and that she does not wish this upon anybody. And she wants to know what you guys think of this story. Apparently she has tried to tell it on her own page before, and she got a lot of hate for it for some reason. But I think this story is absolutely terrifying. I wish it had a little more detail. I do like when stories have more detail. This kind of just listed off a bunch of instances instead of going into like what happened before, during, and after. I would prefer stories to be sent to me in that way, but the story was still good and I still wanted to tell it because it is terrifying and she deserves for her story to be told. And Zara, I'm sure you're going to be watching this. Don't worry, I get a lot of stories where there's not enough detail for me to tell. I am actually going to make another video about that so that you guys know how to send in stories that I can actually tell. But tell me what you guys think of the story. What exactly do you think this was? What do you think this woman wanted? Do you think that she was bad, or do you think she was sad, or do you think that maybe something happened to her in that house? What about the other woman? That's so strange to me. He gets rid of the first woman and then this woman comes. Do you think it was the same woman? I have so many questions. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, suggestions down below though. Please be respectful as always. And right now I'm going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Fairies and moonrises. Thank you so much for the comment that you left the other day. You said that you anxiously wait for my stories, and I love that so much. That means so much to me. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you so much for being a part of my community and for being kind and leaving comments like that. I'm so glad that you like my stories that much. That just, you have no idea. You guys say the nicest things and it gets gets me so excited and it makes my day so much better. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I love you, girl. XX Maria XX825. Thank you so much for the comment that you left. You said that you make a cup of tea and then you listen to my stories every night before you go to bed. That is so cute. Thank you so much. I love that you do that. I make peanut butter and jelly and then I eat ice cream and listen to scary stories. It's so bad for me, but I don't care. It's like the only time that I have at night that I actually look forward to and enjoy. So I'm so glad that I get to be that for you. That makes me so happy. You're the best. Thank you so much for being a part of my community. Thank you for your comment. I hope you know how much I appreciate you, girly. I love you. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell you your paranormal experiences on here or ones that you recommend to me every single night. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much, my spooky babies. I'll see you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
Let's read another true and scary story. So, I'm 14 years old, and this first story happened when I was 11. For context, I live in the middle of a forest with a hiking trail behind my house and neighbors not close to my house at all. I know, sounds perfect for something paranormal to happen. I was with my best friend, and we have this tradition where we go on hikes together. Since we go to different schools and are both busy with sports, we don't get to see each other in person very often. That day, we decided to go for a hike at about 5 p.m. while our families were cooking dinner. We put on sweatshirts, headed outside, and started walking. At first, the hike seemed totally normal. We were laughing, joking around, and just having fun together. But then we started to feel something off. The sun was going down faster. It started getting dark, so we decided to head back. The problem was we were pretty far into the forest. As we speed walked through the trails, our steps started sounding heavier, maybe louder. It's not like the forest went completely quiet or anything. We could still hear the crickets, but our footsteps felt wrong. Now we felt like we were being followed and watched. By then, it was around 5:45 p.m., and there was only a slight sunset glow left, enough so we could see the ground, but not far around us. Then we heard something. Something moving at a little too perfect of a pace and a little too clean, like it was carefully avoiding stepping on anything. We had just passed the flag that marks our property, and we could still vaguely hear the footsteps behind us at the same pace, even though we kept changing our speed. We started using our notes app to talk because, hell no, we did not want some serial killer hearing our conversations. We both felt it, we both heard it, but we both didn't see it. We were so close to the fence surrounding the farm and basically jogging at this point. When she looked back, I heard a slight gasp, like she saw something but didn't want it to notice us. I refused to look back. We finally got home just in time for dinner. The entire meal, she just stared at her plate. When we got back to my room, she finally told me. What she saw was not human, not even a little. She said it was almost like 6 feet tall, but could easily be hidden. Pale, yellow-colored skin, absolutely no hair. To me, that sounds like a flesh pedestrian, but there are so many other things it could be. Nothing happened after that, but I will never forget the look on her face after she glanced back. Thank you so much, Skylar, for sending this one in. I think I agree with you. This sounds like something similar to a flesh pedestrian, or even more creepy, this could be something similar to the pale crawler, also known as the rake. If you've never heard of the rake before, this is a cryptid that is typically roaming around at night in forests. The rakes are said to have no hair, yellowish skin, small eyes and small face, and very, very long arms and legs. So this sounds very similar to what your friend was describing. Thank you again, Skylar, for sending this one in. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
What would you do if your coworkers remembered having a conversation with you the night before, but you were home alone the entire time? This is Scared with Jess and Say's stories about a break room, some security footage, and something that looked enough like her to get inside. This happened when I was working in a medical billing office a couple years ago. Nothing about that job was creepy. It was boring in the most normal way possible, with beige walls, fluorescent lights, stale coffee, everybody pretending not to hate each other until Friday. We had one later shift rotation, so every once in a while I'd stay until around 11, finishing end-of-day reports while the rest of the building emptied out. And one Thursday, I left right at 9:30. I remember that clearly because I stopped for gas on the way home, I got Taco Bell, and I watched 2 episodes of a terrible show in bed, and fell asleep with the TV on. I was alone all night, no one came over, and I didn't leave again. Nothing unusual happened. But the next morning I walked into work and one of the women from collections looked at me, laughed, and said, "You seem more awake today." I asked what she meant, and she said, "You were acting weird last night." I thought she was joking. And then another coworker overheard and said, "Yeah, you really don't remember all that?" That was the first second I felt that cold, sinking feeling. Because they weren't laughing like they were pranking me. They were talking the way people do when they think you're embarrassed and trying to play it off. I asked them exactly what I had supposedly done, and one of them said I came back into the break room after most people had left and just stood there while they were finishing paperwork. Another said I barely blinked the whole time. And then the first woman said, "You kept asking who usually stays latest." I laughed once, but it came out wrong. I said I wasn't here. I went home hours earlier. And they all kind of looked at each other after that. And then one of them said quieter, "Then who was standing in the break room with us?" At that point, I was still trying to force it into something stupid. Misremembering, or somebody that looked like me from behind. One of those little office misunderstandings that get bigger the more people repeat it. And then my manager called me into her office. She shut the door and asked if everything was okay. And that made it worse immediately. I asked her what they had told her, and she said multiple people had seen me in the break room around 11:15, and one of them was unsettled enough to mention it because I wasn't acting like myself. I told her I had been home since then before 10. I told her I had been home since before 10 o'clock, and she stared at me for a second and then said, "Do you want to see the footage?" I wish I had said no, and she pulled up the security camera feed from the break room. It was grainy, black and white, the usual bad office camera angle from high in the corner near the ceiling. You could see the vending machines and the coffee maker, the little table, and part of the hallway outside. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. Two of my coworkers in there talking while one packed up her bag. And then at 11:43, somebody walked into frame from the hallway. It looked like me. Same height and hair and coat I had worn that day. Even the way I held my shoulders looked right at first glance. Then the room went cold around me. I was standing there watching something shaped like me enter my work break room almost 2 hours after I had gone home. One of the women in the footage turned and said something to it, and the thing nodded once, and then it just stood there. That was the part that made my manager pause the video. She pointed and said, "See?" It wasn't standing like a person trying to talk. It wasn't fidgeting or checking a phone or adjusting its bag, not doing anything normal people do when they stop moving. It was just still, too still. And one of the women laughed and said something else to it. And then the thing that looked like me slowly turned its head toward her. Even through the bad footage, I could tell the face was wrong. Not wildly wrong, but just enough. The eyes looked a little too small, and the mouth looked slightly too wide, like something had studied me and gotten impatient near the end. I actually said, "Stop," out loud, and my manager paused the footage again. And then she looked at me and said very carefully, "That's not you?" I said no, and I think she believed me, but not in the way I wanted. We watched the rest anyway, and one coworker in the video asked it something. It answered. No audio on the security footage, obviously, but you could see the mouth move. Then one of the women gave this awkward little laugh and picked up her bag like she was getting uncomfortable. The thing stayed there for another few seconds, and then it turned and walked out of frame. Not back towards the exit, toward the hallway that led to my office. And that made every hair on my arm stand up because my office door automatically locks when the system arms for the night. There should not have been anyone in there. I went straight to my desk after that. Nothing looked disturbed at first, The monitor was off, the chair was tucked in, everything was exactly how I had left it. Then I noticed one sticky note placed exactly in the center of my keyboard. In my handwriting were the words, "You should leave earlier." I don't remember breathing for a second. My manager kept asking if I was okay, but I could barely hear her over the sound of my own pulse. I knew I had not written it. I knew that, but it was my handwriting, and not close, it was exactly mine. I left early that day. Actually, I left permanently 2 weeks later. Officially, I blamed burnout, stress, long hours, all of which were true enough that nobody pushed me. But unofficially, I couldn't stay in the building where something that looked almost like me knew where my office was. Before I quit, I made my manager let me watch the footage one more time. I wanted to know one more thing. I wanted to know whether the thing that had looked towards the camera at any point, or only at the woman in the room. And it did. Right before it left the break room, it turned its face slightly upward. And then, even though the terrible angle and bad resolution, I could tell it was smiling. Not big, but just enough. Like it knew someone would eventually be watching it back. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.